The suitcases struck the cobblestones, one, then the other, like two sharp blows against the morning silence. "I told you to clear out." Connor's voice cut through the fresh Kinsale air. "Don't make me repeat it, Mum." Bridget O'Connell didn't turn. Her knuckles were white from clutching the old leather handles. The suitcases were heavy, not with clothes, but with years. Connor O'Connell stood in the doorway of the stone house as if he'd built it with his own hands. His white shirt impeccable, his dark jacket, shoes that cost more than everything his mother wore. He was 31 and his jaw was tight with the grim set of a man who confused cruelty with firmness. "I'm not supporting someone who brings nothing to the table," he said, stepping down. "This house is mine, the land is mine. Everything you see here belongs to me by right." Bridget paused. The Cork sun warmed her back, casting her long shadow over the stone path. 78 years old. Her back was still straight, though it ached. Her hands cracked from 40 years of stitching wedding dresses for others to celebrate what life had slowly taken from her. She didn't cry. She bit her lip, counted to 3, tightened her grip on the suitcases. From the second-floor window, Fiona watched, arms crossed and a smile she tried to hide, biting her thumbnail. Fiona O'Connell, née Murphy, 30 years old, straight hair to her waist, wearing a designer dress that still had the tag inside, because she liked to show off without seeming to. She had been married to Connor for 4 years. 4 years of whispering in his ear that his mother was a burden, a weight, a shadow from the past that held them back. "Oh, darling," she'd said the night before, caressing his arm in bed. "As long as your mother's here, this house will never truly be ours. I can't raise our children in a place where I feel like a visitor." They had no children, but Fiona knew exactly what words to use and when. The old stone house had stood for 112 years. Connor's great-grandfather had built it on land that was then worthless. And now, with Kinsale, a destination for wealthy foreigners, it was worth €2,800,000. Fiona knew this because she had consulted 3 different estate agents, without telling anyone. Paddy Murphy saw everything from his bakery stall on the corner, 73 years old, apron stained with flour, a grizzled mustache that only twitched when something outraged him. And at that moment, the mustache trembled. "Well, I'll be," he muttered to himself, loud enough for Maureen Sullivan, passing with her shopping, to hear, the young pup throwing out his own mother. If old Seamus could see him, he'd turn over in his grave with fury. "What's that, Paddy?" Maureen stopped, market bag resting against her hip. "What you hear, Maureen?" Young Connors kicked Bridget out, bags and all, as if she were some tenant, his own mother, who wiped his nose and warmed his scones. Maureen crossed herself 3 times. Paddy continued his commentary, but Bridget could no longer hear him. She had passed through the iron gate and walked slowly down the street, her steps firm, like someone who knows if they stops, they'll break. Kinsale's cobblestones are beautiful for tourists. For a 7-8-year-old woman carrying 2 suitcases downhill, they are a torment. Each uneven stone twisted her left ankle, the one that never quite healed after that fall in the workshop when she was 52, and still sewing dresses at 3 a.m. to pay Connor's university fees. University College Cork fees, €4,200 a semester. She sewed 167 wedding dresses in 5 years to pay for it. She counted every single one. Connor never knew. Seamus, his father, told him the money came from an investment. "Don't tell your mam I told you," he'd say. And Connor grew up believing his father was the provider, and his mother was simply there, like the furniture, like the walls. A block further down, Bridget stopped in front of Seamus Kelly's little shop. She set the suitcases on the ground, her hands trembling, not from effort, but from something deeper. "Are you all right, Mrs. O'Connell?" Seamus asked from behind the counter, poking his head out. "Yes, son, just resting a bit." She wasn't all right, but women like Bridget had learned long ago that "I'm all right" wasn't a lie. It was a shield. She sat on the concrete bench beside the shop. From there, she could see the stone house high up the street. Her house, the house she had helped buy with every stitch, every late night, with every perfect white dress that left her hands, while her own marriage quietly unraveled. Seamus had died 3 years ago. A sudden heart attack in the kitchen on a Tuesday morning. He fell with his coffee cup still in hand. Bridget found him on the floor, eyes open and an expression that seemed surprised, as if death had interrupted him mid-thought. After the funeral, Connor cried for 3 days. By the 4th, he was reviewing papers with a solicitor. By the 5th, Fiona had rearranged the sitting room. Bridget clutched the suitcase strap. Inside, she carried 4 dresses, 2 shawls, her blood pressure medication, a photo of a young Seamus, and a wooden box she hadn't opened in years. The box contained Siamus's things, papers, mementos, an old, worn Bible. She didn't know why she carried it, perhaps because throwing it away would have been like burying him again. Mrs. O'Connell. Paddy Murphy appeared, panting, his apron still on, and a scone in his hand he carried by inertia. "Come on, I'll take you to my friend, Nora. She has a small room behind her house, tiny but clean. You won't sleep on the street, I swear on my blessed mother." Bridget looked at him. Paddy had flour on his moustache and moist eyes. "Thank you, Paddy. Don't thank me for anything. Thank that young pup of a son when it dawns on him what he's done, because it will dawn on him, Mrs. O'Connell, it will." She stood, picked up her suitcases, and walked behind Paddy, who mumbled curses under his breath and offered her the scone every 3 steps. Up in the stone house, Connor closed the door. The sound echoed through the ancient walls. Fiona came downstairs with a glass of red wine in her hand. "You did the right thing, darling," she said, kissing his cheek. "Now we can really start living." Connor didn't reply. He stared at the closed door. Something burned in his chest, but he couldn't name it. He mistook it for relief. It wasn't relief. In Nora's small room, Bridget quietly arranged her belongings. 4 dresses on a nail, medicines on the shelf, Seamus's photo by the pillow, the unopened wooden box under the bed. She sat on the edge of the cot. The walls smelled of fresh whitewash. Through the window came the sound of the parish bells. She closed her eyes. She didn't cry, but a single tear traced a path down her left cheek. She wiped it with the back of her hand before it reached her chin, as if someone might see her, as if surrendering were a matter of one more tear or one less. Outside, Paddy Murphy told everyone who passed what he had seen that morning. By noon, half of Kinsale knew that Connor O'Connell had kicked his mother out of the house. What no one knew, neither Connor, nor Fiona, nor Paddy, nor Bridget herself, was that beneath that bed, inside that wooden box, next to an old, worn Bible, lay a secret worth €17 million, and it was about to awaken. Nora's small room measured 3 by 3 meters, polished concrete floor, a window without a curtain, a cot with a thin mattress, and a nail in the wall where Bridget hung her 4 dresses, as if they were 4 versions of herself. The blue for Sundays, the grey for every day, the black for mourning she still wore, and a floral one she hadn't worn in years, but couldn't part with. She had sewn the floral one herself. The day Siamus proposed, not on one knee, not with a ring. Siamus stood in the doorway of her sewing workshop, his hands covered in motor grease, and said, "Bridget, why don't we just get married and stop messing about?" She was 23, her hands full of pins, and her heart full of a man who didn't know how to say pretty things, but who arrived every day at 6 p.m. without fail. They married on a Thursday. She sewed her own floral dress because she couldn't afford white fabric. That night on Nora's cot, Bridget didn't sleep. She lay staring at the ceiling with open eyes, listening to the crickets and the drip of a poorly closed tap in the yard. Every time she closed her eyelids, she saw Connor's face in the doorway, his hand extended, his finger pointing towards the street. "I told you to clear out." She opened her eyes again. When had he changed? When had he stopped being the boy who asked her to tell him stories 3 times in a row before bed? The boy who drew wedding dresses on notebook pages and brought them to the workshop. "Look, ma'am, I designed one for you." The boy who once, at 8 years old, stood up to a classmate who mocked her at the school gate and said, "My ma'am sews better than anyone, and you can't even tie your shoelaces." When? Fiona. It was Fiona when, but Bridget knew blaming only Fiona was easy. The truth was more bitter. Connor chose. Every day, he chose to believe his wife, instead of looking his mother in the eyes. At 5 a.m. she rose, washed her face with cold water, combed her hair with the same bristle brush she'd used for 30 years. She looked at herself in the broken mirror Nora had in the bathroom, wrinkle by wrinkle, line by line. Each mark told a story. The one by her right eye was from laughing, the one on her forehead was from worrying, the one by her mouth was from staying silent. Too many were from staying silent. Paddy knocked on the door at 7 with a plate of warm scones covered with a cloth. "Brought you breakfast, Mrs. O'Connell. They're good, honestly. My friend Nora taught me the recipe, even if she says she didn't. You shouldn't have bothered, Paddy. No bother. It's an investment, because you're going to tell me what happened with that pup of a son of yours, and I need the full story before Maureen Sullivan invents her own version. She's already saying you were evicted for witchcraft." Bridget almost smiled. Almost. She sat on the cot with the plate on her lap. Paddy settled on the only wooden stool, hands on his knees, curiosity painted on every wrinkle. "It wasn't witchcraft, Paddy. I know that, but tell me then, from the beginning." Bridget chewed a scone, then another. She took a breath, Ever since Seamus died, Connor changed. Or maybe he'd changed before, and I just didn't want to see it. Fiona started moving things in the house without asking my permission. First the sitting room, then the kitchen, then my room. My room. They moved me to the small room at the back, the one that was a storeroom. They said they needed the main bedroom for when visitors came. Paddy's jaw tightened, his mustache trembled. Visitors? What visitors? Nobody goes to that house except the gas man. Fiona's visitors, friends from the city, women with expensive bags who stayed for a weekend and left wine glasses all over the house. Bridget set the plate aside. 6 months ago, Connor told me the house was in his name, that Seamus had put it in his name before he died. He showed me a paper. I didn't quite understand. But I saw Seamus's signature, and I kept quiet. And was it true? Bridget looked out the window. I don't know, Paddy. I don't know what's true anymore. What Bridget didn't tell Paddy, because she didn't know yet, was that the paper was false. Fiona had obtained it through a solicitor in Macroom who charged €1,500 to create documents that looked real. The solicitor was named Mr. Connolly. He wore thick-rimmed glasses and had a conscience the size of a 10-cent coin, but that would come later. That morning, while Bridget ate scones in a borrowed room, Connor ate eggs Benedict in the Stonehouse kitchen. Fiona sat opposite him with her laptop open. "Look at this, darling," she said, turning the screen. "This agent says we can list the property in euro, 2.8 million. There's an American from Texas who's been looking for something like this in Kinsale for months. Historic house, original stone, view of the town center." Connor looked at the screen, then at the kitchen, the walls his mother had hand-painted every spring, the window where she put her potted hydrangeas. "And my mother?" he asked without thinking. "What about her? She's gone, isn't she?" "No." Problem solved. Connor took his coffee, said nothing more. Fiona closed the laptop with a smile. She already had an appointment with the estate agent for Thursday. Meanwhile, in Kinsale Town Centre, Bridget walked to the National Bank. In her bag, she carried an old notebook with the account number Seamus, and she had opened together 25 years ago. A modest savings account where she deposited what she had left over from sewing, never much, but constant, drop by drop. For decades she queued. 40 minutes. Her knees ached. The lady in front was on the phone, loudly talking about a confirmation party. The one behind sighed every 30 seconds. When she reached the counter, the cashier, a young girl with long, colorful nails, typed the account number and frowned. "Madam, this account has a zero balance." "How? Zero balance? A full withdrawal was made weeks ago. Here it says authorized by joint account holder Connor O'Connell." The floor moved, or so Bridget felt. She gripped the edge of the counter with both hands. 25,000 euros, the savings of a lifetime of sewing at 3 a.m. Gone. "Madam, are you feeling all right? Can I get you some water?" "I'm all right." She wasn't all right, but you know. She left the bank walking straight, staring ahead, seeing nothing. The streets of Kinsale passed by like colored blurs, tourists with hats, music from a restaurant, the smell of fresh coffee from a corner stall. She sat on a bench in the main square. The sun warmed her face. She closed her eyes. 25,000 euros. Each euro sewn by hand, each with a name and surname, Mrs. Fitzgerald's dress, the solicitor's daughters, the bride who arrived crying because the groom had left her. And Bridget fixed the dress for free and told her, "My dear, if he doesn't want you, that dress will look even better on the next one." Everything. He took everything. Bridget opened her eyes. A man in a grey suit, graying hair and a navy blue tie, looked at her with a worried expression. It took her a second to recognize him. "Mr. Gallagher, it's me, Mrs. O'Connell. Can I help you with anything? I saw you leave the bank and you didn't look well." Richard Gallagher, branch manager for 15 years. He had known Seamus personally. They played dominoes on Fridays at Lalo's pub. Gallagher was one of the few men in Kinsale who knew that Seamus was not just the good-natured husband everyone saw, but a man who kept important things in places no one looked. "Mrs. O'Connell," Gallagher said, sitting beside her on the bench, lowering his voice. "I shouldn't be telling you this, but Seamus was my friend." Bridget looked at him. "The account you came to check, that's not the only one Seamus had with us." "How?" Gallagher adjusted his tie, looked around. "There's another document. It's not exactly an account, it's something else. Something Seamus left before he died. I can't give you details here on the street, but if you have Seamus's original papers, the real papers, you should review them carefully." "I don't understand, Mr. Gallagher." "What papers?" Gallagher stood up. He buttoned his jacket, the ones he kept where no one looks. "Mrs. O'Connell, you knew him. You know where that is." He gave her a card with his direct number, squeezed her hand with both of his, and walked away quickly, like someone who knows they've just crossed a line they shouldn't have. Bridget remained on the bench with the card in her hand. The sun moved, the shadows shifted, the square gradually emptied, where no one looks. Seamus kept important things in one place, always the same since they met. The Bible, the old black-bound Bible with worn corners, and his mother's name written on the first page in blue ink. The Bible, which Bridget had put in the wooden box and which was now under the cot in Nora's small room. She stood up from the bench. Her hands trembled, but this time it wasn't from sadness. It was from something she hadn't felt in a long time. She walked back with a firm step, faster than in the morning. The suitcases no longer weighed her down because she wasn't carrying them, but something new weighed on her chest. A question that wouldn't let her breathe. "What did you hide, Seamus? What did you leave me without telling me?" In the stone house, Fiona uncorked a second bottle of wine and showed Connor the renderings of how the property would look, remodeled for sale. "We can put a terrace here where your mother's workshop was, and an infinity pool with a view of the bay. The American from Texas will die when he sees this." Connor nodded, but he wasn't looking at the renderings. He was looking at the empty space where his mother's sewing machine used to be. And in Nora's small room, Bridget knelt beside the cot. She pulled out the wooden box and placed it on the bed. She opened it. The Bible was there, heavy, dark, smelling of old paper, and Seamus's hands. She took it with both hands, pressed it against her chest, and for the first time in 3 years, she spoke to her dead husband aloud. "What did you hide from me, you stubborn old man?" The answer was between those pages, but Bridget didn't know it yet. Paddy Murphy, passing by the window selling scones, heard her talking to herself and stopped. "Mrs. O'Connell, are you all right?" "I'm all right, Paddy. Well, if you need anything, I'm around. And I saved you a good cheese and onion scone, not like the ones I sell to tourists." Bridget almost smiled again. Almost, but this time the almost was a little closer to yes. Bridget didn't open the Bible that night. She held it in her hands for an hour, sitting on the cot, the weight of the pages against her thighs and the smell of old paper rising to her fingers. But she didn't open it, not out of fear, but out of respect. Seamus always said, important things are done in daylight and with a clear head. She could still hear him in that hoarse mechanic's voice, reading the newspaper aloud even when no one asked him to. So she put the Bible under her pillow, lay down, and waited for dawn. At 6 a.m., with the first ray of sun entering through the curtainless window, Bridget sat on the cot, crossed herself, and opened the Bible. The first pages were the usual ones: Genesis, Exodus, the tiny print in 2 columns, some words underlined in pencil, verses Seamus's mother had marked decades ago. In the margin of Psalm 27, someone had written in faded blue ink, "God tempers the wind to the shorn lamb. I hope so." Bridget turned the pages carefully. Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, nothing, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, and then, between the pages of Ruth, the book of the woman who did not abandon her mother-in-law, something peeked out, a thick yellow envelope, folded in half to fit between the leaves. The paper was soft from being stored for so long in the corner with Seamus's unmistakable handwriting, those crooked capitals that seemed written in a hurry. It said, "For Bridget, when I am no longer here." Her hands trembled. She pressed them against each other until they stopped shaking. Then she opened the envelope. Inside were 2 things. The first, a letter, 2 sheets written on both sides in Seamus's same hurried hand. The ink was blue, but in some parts it was clear the pen had run out of ink, and he had kept pressing, leaving invisible grooves in the paper. The second, an official document with letterhead, seals, signatures, with a folio number that Bridget didn't understand. She put the document aside for the moment, took the letter. "Bridget, if you're reading this, it's because I've died and didn't have the guts to tell you these things in life. Forgive me for that. Forgive me for many things." Bridget gripped the letter. She continued, "Do you think I supported this family? It's not true. You supported it. I just put on a brave face. Every dress you sewed paid for something I couldn't pay for. Connor's school, my mother's medicines, the deed to the house. Everything came from your hands, Bridget, from your hands and your late nights, and I never told you because I was ashamed to admit that, without you, I would have been nothing." The letters blurred, not because the ink had run, but because Bridget's tears fell on the paper. 1, 2, 3. She wiped them with her dress sleeve and continued reading. "I did something. Old girl, something no one knows. Not Connor, not the bank manager, no one but me, and now you." Bridget brought the paper closer to her eyes. "Do you remember the Laurel Glen land? The one my Uncle Liam left me when he died? The The one everyone said was worthless because it was in the middle of the hills. Well, it turns out it was worth a lot. 12 years ago, a mining company contacted me. They wanted to buy the subsoil rights. There was silver. Not a lot, but enough for them to offer me an amount I couldn't even pronounce without my voice trembling. Bridget stopped breathing. I didn't sell, Bridget. I negotiated royalties. Mr. Gallagher helped me put everything into a trust. In your name, only your name. 17 million euro accumulated in 12 years of royalties. The trust is called the Bridget O'Connell Fund. It's at the bank, but it doesn't appear on any normal statement. It only activates with the document. I leave you here and your identification. Bridget's hands no longer trembled. They were still, completely still, as if her whole body had decided to stop so she could understand what she was reading. 17 million euro. She, who yesterday was carrying 2 suitcases downhill on the cobblestones. I didn't tell Connor because I wanted you to decide. You, Bridget. Not me, not him. You, because you're the one who always knew what to do with little. Now I want to see what you do with a lot. The letter ended with a loose line, written further down, as if Seamus had added it another day. And please, old girl, don't be angry with me for keeping the secret. I know you'll be angry. But remember I loved you with everything I had, even though I never knew how to say it nicely. Bridget folded the letter, pressed it against her chest, closed her eyes. She didn't cry. She had cried enough. What she did was something no one expected from a 7-8-year-old woman sitting on a borrowed cot with a secret worth 17 million euro in her hands. She laughed, a short, dry laugh that came from the depths of her stomach and shook her shoulders, not from joy, but from something more complex, from relief, from rage, from tenderness, from courage, all mixed together in a sound that had no name. Stubborn old man, she murmured. Stubborn old man, obstinate, thick-headed. 12 years with that hidden, and you never told me anything. 12 years. She took the official document, unfolded it, bank letterhead, trust number, sole beneficiary, Bridget O'Connell. Accumulated value at last cut off 17,234,856 euros. Below in small print. For activation, present this original document, valid official identification, and the beneficiary's autograph signature to the trustee. Official identification. Bridget froze. Her driver's license was in the stone house, in the dresser drawer in her old bedroom. The bedroom that was now a storage room for Fiona's designer luggage. Without identification, the trust was just a number on a piece of paper, nothing more. She put everything back in the envelope in the Bible under the pillow. She sat upright on the cot and thought she couldn't go to the house to ask for her license. Connor wouldn't let her in. And if Fiona found out such a document existed, she would destroy it before Bridget could blink. She needed help, but not just anyone's. She left the room and walked to the corner where Paddy Murphy was already set up with his scone cart and his battery-powered radio tuned to a traditional Irish music station. Paddy, Mrs. O'Connell, good morning. Scone with jam or plain? Today I also have fruit scones, but those are for the tourists. I charge them double. I need to ask you a favor. Paddy looked at her. Something in Bridget's face told him it wasn't a scone favor. Whatever you need, Mrs. O'Connell. I need to know if anyone has entered or left my house. Who comes, who goes, what time, everything. Paddy straightened up. His mustache settled on its own, as if it had a life of its own. Mrs. O'Connell, I've been on this corner for 42 years. First delivering mail, now selling scones. I know every door, every window, and every crack on this street. If a mosquito enters your house, I'll tell you what kind it was, and if it carried luggage. Then, we're good. We're more than good. Just tell me, is this about that pup of a son of yours, or is there something else? Bridget looked at him steadily. She thought about telling him. She thought about the 17 million. She thought about Seamus's letter. She thought about the license locked in that house. There's something else, Paddy, but I can't tell you yet. You don't have to tell me anything, Mrs. O'Connell. I do my job, and you do yours. Just one thing. Be careful with your daughter-in-law. That woman has the eyes of someone who counts money before earning it. Bridget nodded. She bought a cheese and onion scone, ate it standing on the corner, looking at the stone house high up the street. Her driver's license was in there, her identity, the key to 17 million euro, and in there was Fiona, who at that precise moment was on the phone with the estate agent, saying, "Yes, Thursday is perfect. Bring the buyer and don't worry about the old lady. She doesn't live here anymore." The old lady was 200 meters away, eating a scone, with a secret hidden between the pages of an old Bible. And for the first time in a long time, Bridget wasn't sad, she was thinking. Thursday arrived with clear sun and the sound of the parish bells striking 10. Bridget knew because Paddy had told her at 7 a.m., standing outside her window with a cup of hot tea and urgency painted on his mustache. "Mrs. O'Connell, there's movement at the house." A fellow in a suit with a briefcase arrived at 6:30. Fiona met him at the door with that smile she uses when she wants something. Connor didn't even show his face. What was the fellow like? Short, fat, thick glasses, slick back hair. He had a red folder with an estate agent's logo. Anyone else? At 8, a black van with Texas plates arrived. 2 Americans got out, one tall, the other taller, both in hats and boots that cost what I earn in a month. Bridget closed her eyes. The sale. Fiona was moving forward with the sale of the house right now. The 112-year-old stone house, the house she and Seamus had restored together, stone by stone, when the roof was falling apart and no one would give a penny for that old shell. Are they still inside? They are. And Fiona sent out for food from an Italian restaurant. I saw her taking the bags. Red wine included. Mrs. O'Connell, that woman knows what she's doing. Bridget dressed. Her Sunday blue dress, though it was Thursday. She carefully combed her hair. She put on the small silver earrings Seamus gave her on their 30th anniversary. They weren't expensive, but they were hers. "Are you going over there, Mrs. O'Connell?" "No, Paddy, not yet. I'm going to the bank." She walked to the town center with a determined step. Kinsale's streets were full of tourists taking photos in front of Street Maltose Church. No one looked at her. She was an old woman in a blue dress and silver earrings, invisible as always. But under her dress, in a cloth bag sewn inside, she carried the trust document and Seamus's letter. She wasn't going to leave them under any pillow. Not again. She entered the bank and asked to speak with Mr. Gallagher. The receptionist, a young woman with a long braid and a bored expression, told her to wait. Bridget sat in the waiting room for 45 minutes. Men in suits, women with designer bags, a man shouting on the phone about a transfer passed by her. No one looked at her. Gallagher came out at 11 on the dot. When he saw her, his face changed. "Mrs. O'Connell, come in, please." Mr. Gallagher's office smelled of freshly brewed coffee and the wood of the bookshelves that lined the walls. On the desk, a photo of Gallagher playing dominoes with 3 men. One of them was Seamus, smiling that sideways smile he used when he had good tiles. "I found what you told me, Mr. Gallagher. It was in the Bible." Gallagher took off his glasses, cleaned them, put them back on, took the document with both hands. "The Bridget O'Connell Fund," he said softly, as if pronouncing the name were a delicate act. "Seamus came to see me 2 months before he died. He didn't look well. I think he knew. He told me, 'Richard, if anything happens to me, make sure she finds the Bible.' I asked him why he didn't tell her directly. Do you know what he answered? 'What? Because if I tell her, she'll scold me for keeping a secret for 12 years. And she's right, but I prefer her to scold me when I can no longer hear her.'" Bridget laughed. Short, sad. Exactly, that was him. "Mrs. O'Connell, the trust is intact. 17,234,856 euros. It hasn't been touched because only you can activate it, but I need your official identification. Without a driver's license, I can't do anything. It's a legal requirement. No getting around it. My license is in the house. You can go look for it. My son threw me out of the house 4 days ago, Mr. Gallagher. The license is in a drawer, and my daughter-in-law is currently showing the property to a Texan buyer to sell it for 2,800,000 euros. Gallagher leaned back in his chair, tugged at his tie knot as if it were too tight. "Sell the house? By what right? They say it's in Connor's name." "Since when?" "They showed me a paper with Seamus's signature. I saw it. It looked real." Gallagher was silent for a moment. Then he opened a desk drawer and pulled out a folder. "Madam, I witnessed the original deed for that house. We signed it in this very office 18 years ago. The property is in the name of Seamus O'Connell and Bridget O'Connell, both joint owners with a survivorship clause. That means when Seamus died, the house automatically passed to you, only to you. Any document that says otherwise is false. False. False, madam. Someone fabricated a paper, and I have the original deed in the bank's archives because Seamus left a certified copy here." Gallagher opened the folder. There was the yellowed paper with the notary's seals, Seamus and Bridget's signatures, the date from 18 years ago. Real, solid, undeniable. "Mr. Gallagher, if the house is mine and the trust is mine, everything is yours, madam. It always was. But without your license, I can't activate the trust, and without a solicitor, I can't prevent them from selling the house with a false document. Do you know a solicitor? Gallagher smiled for the first time. I know the best in County Cork. Her name is Aine Kelly. They call her the Wolfhound because when she bites, she doesn't let go. She was Seamus's classmate in primary school. He trusted her implicitly. Call her. I already spoke to her yesterday. Madam, when I saw you in the square, I told her you might need her. Bridget looked at Gallagher. This quiet man with his tight tie and his wooden office had been keeping the promise he made to a dead friend without anyone asking him to. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Don't thank me, madam. Thank your husband. That man was stubborn about many things, but when it came to loving you, he was the most obstinate of them all. Bridget left the bank with the certified deed in the cloth bag, along with the trust document and Seamus's letter. 3 papers, 3 proofs that everything they had taken from her was still hers, but the driver's license was still missing, and in the stone house, things were moving fast. Paddy Murphy intercepted her on the corner. His apron was crooked and his moustache bristled. Mrs. O'Connell, the Americans left an hour ago, but before they left, one of them shook Fiona's hand, and she hugged Connor as if they'd won the lottery. And after that, Mrs. O'Connell, this is important. A fellow on a motorbike arrived, skinny, with thick-rimmed glasses, a nervous rat-like face, handed Fiona a large manila envelope and left very quickly, as if it burned him. Thick-rimmed glasses. Yes, madam, thick as bottle bottoms. The solicitor from Macroom, Mr. Connolly, the one with the false documents. Fiona was preparing the papers to close the sale. New papers, fresh, false papers. Bridget felt something cold in her stomach. Not fear, urgency. Paddy, is the kitchen door locked? The back one? No. As far as I know, that door doesn't close properly. Not since the frame swelled with last year's rains. Your husband always said he'd fix it and never did. Because Seamus was stubborn about that too. You're going in, Mrs. O'Connell. Bridget didn't answer. She looked at the stone house. The main door was closed. The front windows had their curtains drawn, but the kitchen door, the back one, the one that opened onto the garden where Seamus planted tomatoes that never grew well. Tomorrow, Paddy. Early tomorrow. What time does Connor leave? On Fridays he leaves at 8. He goes to that fancy gym on the bypass road, and Fiona sleeps until 10 on Fridays. Wednesdays and Fridays, like clockwork. I know because Wednesdays and Fridays are the only days she doesn't close the curtains early. Bridget looked at him with something between admiration and unease. Paddy, do you always watch everything like this? Madam, I've been on this corner for 42 years. What I don't know about this street isn't worth knowing. Besides, since they threw you out, I've been watching double, because someone has to. Bridget squeezed his arm firmly, in gratitude, in alliance. Tomorrow at 8:15. Paddy, I'll need you to let me know if anyone arrives. 8:15. I'll be there with scones just in case, because the best operations are done on a full stomach. He walked off to his stall. Bridget remained on the corner, looking at her house from below. Tomorrow she would enter her own house like a thief, to reclaim what was hers, a driver's license, a name, an identity that her own son had torn from her. And upstairs in the second-floor window, a curtain briefly stirred, as if someone had been looking down and had retreated just in time. Fiona let the curtain fall and picked up her phone. Connor, your mother was on the corner talking to the baker again. So what? I don't know, but I don't like it. She looked like she was plotting something. She's a 7-8-year-old woman. Fiona, what could she be plotting? Fiona didn't respond, but she gripped the phone tightly because Fiona knew something. Connor didn't. Women who have survived a lifetime in silence are the most dangerous when they decide to speak. And Bridget was about to speak. Friday dawned with fog. Kinsale was filled with a white silence that made footsteps sound louder and voices travel further. Bridget had been awake since 4. She hadn't slept. She had rehearsed every step, every door, every second. At 7:50, Paddy sent her a message on the phone. Nora lent her. A message with 3 spelling mistakes and all the precision in the world. Young pup left at 7:48. Black car, gym, Viper still sleeping. Bridget put on her everyday grey dress, low shoes. She tied her hair with a ribbon she found in Nora's room. She put an empty plastic bag in her apron pocket. She went out. The fog dampened her face. She walked uphill on the cobblestones, close to the walls, as if the town were hers, and she was hiding from it. The tourists hadn't come out yet, only the dogs and the bells. The stone house appeared through the mist like a solid ghost, 112 years standing, the walls thick as crossed arms, the iron gate closed, but Bridget wasn't going to the front. She went around the block by the back street, past the garden wall and reached the kitchen door. the old wooden door that Seamus never fixed. She pushed it with her hip. It gave way with a long creak, as if the house itself were letting her in. The smell hit her first, the smell of home, of damp stone, of old coffee, of the herbs she planted in the kitchen window, thyme, mint, rosemary. They were still there, half-dried, abandoned in their clay pots. She stood still, listened, nothing upstairs. Fiona slept. She walked through the kitchen in silence. The Talavera tiles that she and Seamus had laid together one by one during an entire summer. He cut, she glued. He complained about the heat. She told him to be quiet and handed him lemon water. The tile in the corner, the crooked one, was still crooked. Seamus said he would fix it. He didn't fix it. He never fixed anything on time, but he was always there. Bridget ran her fingers over the crooked tile, caressed it as if it were someone's cheek. She continued down the hallway, the pictures on the wall that she had hung, wedding photos, Connor's baptism, first communion, all were still there, but someone had moved the wedding photo to the darkest corner, and in its place had put a large mirror with a gilded frame. A mirror where before her face was next to Seamus's, now there was a reflection of whoever passed by. Fiona saw herself every time she came downstairs. Bridget looked away and continued walking. The main bedroom was on the first floor, at the end of the hallway. The door was ajar. Inside what used to be her room, the room where Connor was born, where Seamus hugged her on cold nights, where she sewed dresses until 3 a.m. while he snored like a broken engine. Now it was a walk-in wardrobe, designer luggage piled up, hangers with branded clothes, shoes arranged by color in a cabinet that occupied the entire wall where Bridget's Singer sewing machine used to be. The Singer was gone. Bridget stopped. She searched for it with her eyes, scanned every corner of the room. The Singer model, 2011 machine her mother gave her when she turned 16, was not there. The machine with which she sewed her first wedding dress. The machine that made 167 dresses to pay for Connor's university fees. The machine that had the initials BOC engraved on the iron base because her mother had them engraved as a birthday gift. It was not there. Something broke inside Bridget. It made no sound. Things that truly break make no sound. They shatter silently like a bird's bones. She breathed once, twice. She bit her lip until she tasted metal. You didn't come to cry, Bridget. You came for your license. The dresser was against the wall. The same dark wood dresser they had bought at the antique market in Skibbereen, the one with a drawer that always jammed and had to be pulled with both hands. She opened the first drawer, Fiona's underwear, lace and silk. Second drawer, papers, bank statements, travel agency brochures. Third drawer, the one that jammed. She pulled it hard. Inside, a manila envelope, and inside the envelope, Bridget O'Connell's driver's license. The photo with her serious face, the data, the signature, her name, her identity. She pressed it against her chest as if it were a newborn child. Next to the license there was something else, a folder with typed papers. Curiosity overcame fear. She opened it. It was a property purchase agreement. Date, next Monday. Buyer, a Texan trust called Coastal Heritage Properties LLC, price €2,800,000. Seller Connor O'Connell. Notary signature, Mr. Arthur Connolly, Macroom Solicitors. Monday. She had 3 days. She put her driver's license in the cloth bag sewn into her dress. She left the folder exactly where it was. If Fiona noticed anything missing, everything would accelerate. She walked back down the hallway, past the gilded mirror. She didn't look at herself. Passed through the kitchen, stopped in front of the pots of dried herbs. She took the mint one, the tiny one that fit in one hand. She put it in the plastic bag. It was a ridiculous theft, a dried plant. But that plant she had planted with Seamus one Sunday afternoon when he decided he wanted to learn to cook. And she told him to first learn to water a plant without drowning it. He didn't learn. The mint survived by a miracle, like her. She left through the kitchen door, closed it slowly, went around the block, walked down the street. Paddy Murphy was waiting for her on the corner with a scone in each hand and wide eyes. You did it! Bridget took out her driver's license from the bag and showed it to him without saying anything. Mrs. O'Connell, well done. Paddy raised a scone to the sky as if it were a trophy. Mission accomplished. I told you that door didn't close. I told you. Quiet, Paddy. They'll hear us. You're right. But let me celebrate a little because this feels like a film. Mrs. O'Connell, like one of those they show on telly on Sundays. Bridget took a cheese and onion scone. She sat on the corner bench. The fog was lifting and the sun was beginning to paint the walls with colors. She had her license. She had the trust document. She had the certified deed from the bank. She had Seamus's letter, and she had 3 days before her house was sold. She ate the scone slowly, chewing each bite as if she had all the time in the world. Because women like Bridget had learned long ago that haste is the enemy of precision, and what was coming required precision. At 10:15, Nora's phone rang. It was Mr. Gallagher. "Mrs. O'Connell, Miss Kelly can see you today at 4. Do you have the license?" "I have it." A silence. Then Gallagher's voice, softer. "Seamus was right about you, Mrs. O'Connell. He always said you were the stronger of the two." Bridget hung up. She looked at the dried mint pot she had placed on the small room's window. She watered it with a glass of water. The dry leaves didn't move, but the earth absorbed the water with a thirst of years. Sometimes things that seem dead just need someone to water them. Bridget sat on the cot, took out Seamus's letter and reread it. This time she didn't cry. This time she read every word with dry eyes and a firm jaw. "Do you think I supported this family? It's not true. You supported it." "I know, old man," she murmured. "I know." She folded the letter, put it away. She put on her Sunday blue dress for the second time that week. At 4 she had an appointment with the wolfhound, and Fiona had 3 days left to feel like the owner of something that was never hers. In the stone house, at 11 a.m., Fiona opened the dresser to look for perfume. She rummaged through the first drawer, the second, opened the third with a strong pull. The manila envelope was there, the contract was there, everything seemed in order. But something pricked her at the back of her neck. Something she couldn't name. She checked again. Something was missing. She didn't know what, but it was missing. She stood in front of the dresser with the drawer open and the feeling that someone had been there in her space, in her territory. She closed the drawer. "Connor," she called upstairs. "You opened the dresser in the room, didn't you?" "Why?" "No reason." But it wasn't for no reason, and both knew it. Bridget in her small room watering a dry plant, and Fiona in the stone house feeling something slipping through her fingers. What was slipping away had a name, Bridget O'Connell, and she now had her license. Miss Annie Kelly was 62 years old, with short, dark red hair and an office in the center of Cork City that smelled of black coffee and old files. On the wall behind her desk was a degree from University College Dublin, a photo with the mayor, and a cross-stitched sign that read, "Justice may be slow, but it arrives. And when it does, I'm with it." Her mother had embroidered it for her. She'd had it there for 30 years. When Bridget entered the office at 4 on the dot, the wolfhound stood up from her chair, came around the desk and hugged her. Not a professional hug, a hug from someone who knows the story before hearing it. "Mrs. O'Connell, please sit down. Richard has told me the basics, but I want to hear it from you." Bridget sat down, placed her driver's license, the trust document, Seamus's letter, and the certified copy of the original deed on the desk. 4 papers, 4 truths against a castle of lies. The wolfhound reviewed them one by one. She put on her reading glasses that hung from her neck with a beaded chain. She read without speaking. She moved her lips when something caught her attention, as if she were chewing on each legal word. 5 minutes of silence. 10. Bridget didn't interrupt her. Women who have waited a lifetime know how to wait 5 more minutes. The wolfhound took off her glasses, placed them on the desk, looked at Bridget. "Madam, I'm going to tell you 3 things. First, your house is yours. The deed is clear. The survivorship clause is undeniable, and any document that says otherwise is a forgery that I will legally destroy. And second, the trust is legitimate. I checked the folio, the structure, the letterhead. It is correctly constituted with the financial regulator. 17 million euro that no one has touched because no one could touch it except you." Bridget nodded. She breathed. And the third, the wolfhound leaned forward. Her eyes gleamed with something that was not compassion. It was hunger. Third, that solicitor from Macroom, Mr. Connolly, committed a federal crime by fabricating false documents for the transfer of a property. Your daughter-in-law is a direct accomplice, and your son, madam, though it pains me to say it, is an accomplice by omission if he signed any papers, knowing you were a co-owner. This can not only be stopped, it can be punished. Bridget closed her eyes for a moment. Punish. The word weighed on her like a brick in her chest. Punishing Fiona was one thing. Punishing Connor was another. "I don't want my son to go to jail, Miss Kelly. That's for you to decide later. First, we're going to stop the sale." "When is it?" "Monday." The wolfhound looked at her watch. "Friday, 4:30 p.m. We have the weekend. I'm going to prepare a civil lawsuit for document forgery and an injunction to freeze the sale. First thing Monday, before they sign anything, a court official will arrive at that house with a court order. No one will sell anything. Can you do that over a weekend?" The wolfhound smiled. It was the smile of someone who has spent 30 years fighting people who believe money can buy the law. "Madam, I started my career as an intern in a courthouse, where files were falling apart. I've gotten injunctions on December 24th at 11 p.m. A weekend is a luxury." Bridget looked at her. This red-haired woman with her embroidered sign and her chain glasses was exactly what she needed. Not a solicitor, a warrior with a postcode. "How much do I owe you, Miss Kelly?" "Nothing." "How nothing?" "Seamus lent me money when I was starting out and no one would give me the time of day. 3,000 euros that I had no way to repay. Do you know what he told me when I tried to give it back?" "What?" "Earn it by doing justice, Aina, and when my old girl needs help, that's when you charge." That's what he said, my old girl, word for word. Bridget covered her mouth with her hand, not to keep from crying, but to keep from laughing. That man called me my old girl since I was 25. Well, your old girl now has a free solicitor and 17 million euro, so let's get to work. The wolfhound opened a new notebook, took out a thick pen, and began writing with the speed of someone who knows every hour counts. Meanwhile, in Kinsale, Paddy Murphy was living the best Friday of his life. Sitting on his corner stool with a school notebook where he wrote everything in childish handwriting, he had recorded the movements of the stone house since 6 a.m., as if he were a secret agent. 6:15 lights on second floor. 7:48 Connor leaves, black car, gym. 10. 3. Fiona opens window, talks on phone, can't hear well. 11:30 delivery driver arrives with boxes. Fiona signs, 3 large boxes. 12:45 Fiona leaves, white dress, sunglasses, goes by taxi. 14:20 Fiona returns with shopping bags. 15:30 gritos. "No se entiende, pero alguien avienta algo." Paddy closed the notebook when he saw Maureen Sullivan approaching with her shopping bag and curiosity hanging from her eyebrows. "What are you writing so much, Paddy?" "Nothing, Maureen. Scone inventory. Scone inventory in a notebook with the Little Mermaid on the cover. It's the one I had at hand." Maureen didn't believe him, but she didn't insist either. In Kinsale, kind lies were common currency. That night, Bridget returned from Cork on the 8 o'clock bus. The road was dark, and the bus smelled of hot plastic and passengers' sandwiches. She sat by the window with the cloth bag pressed against her lap. Inside were her driver's license, the trust document, the certified deed, Seamus's letter, and now a power of attorney signed by Miss Kelly, authorizing her to act as her legal representative. 5 papers, 5 truths, against a lie that was about to crumble. When she arrived at Nora's room, Paddy was waiting for her with the Little Mermaid notebook and a plate of Irish stew Nora had saved for her. "Mrs. O'Connell, I have the full report for the day. Tell me the most important." At 3:30 there were shouts in the house. I couldn't hear well, but I recognized Fiona's voice shouting something about a driver's license. I think she realized it's missing. Bridget put her spoon down in the plate. "Driver's license. That's what I heard, madam." "Where's the driver's license?" she shouted, or something like that. I was across the street and a lorry passed right at that moment, but I swear she said driver's license. Fiona knew, or at least suspected. Bridget finished the stew in silence. Paddy watched her with the patience of a man who knows that answers come when they have to. "Paddy, can I ask you another favor?" "Anything, madam. If tomorrow or Sunday you see anything strange at the house, anything at all, you call me on Nora's phone, no matter the time. I swear on my blessed mother, and my blessed mother doesn't mess around, madam. That woman would scold me from heaven if I didn't comply." Bridget washed her plate, watered the mint. She sat on the cot. Saturday and Sunday, 2 days. On Monday, the wolfhound would arrive with the court order, but 2 days was a long time when someone like Fiona already smelled danger. She lay down. She didn't turn off the light. She lay staring at the ceiling with Seamus's Bible against her chest, like a paper shield. "Hold on, old man," she murmured. "Almost there." In the stone house, the second-floor lights were on at midnight. Fiona paced the bedroom with the phone in her hand. Connor sat on the bed with his elbows on his knees and his head in his hands. "I'm telling you, someone broke into the house, Connor. Your mother's driver's license isn't there." "Why would she want her license?" "She's an old lady, Fiona. She probably had it before she left." "No, I saw it there a week ago. It was in the drawer and now it's not. And what does a driver's license matter?" Fiona stopped. She looked at him with that look she used when she thought faster than everyone else in the room. "It matters, Connor. It matters if your mother is looking for something, if she went to a bank, if she went to a solicitor, if she's moving pieces we don't see. My mother doesn't know about solicitors or banks. Your mother sewed dresses for 40 years to pay for your university. And you think she doesn't know about money? Connor looked at her. For the first time in a long time, something in Fiona's face scared him. Not of her, but of what she saw, and he didn't. Move up the sale, Fiona said. Call the solicitor. Let them sign tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday. Connolly works Saturdays. You pay him double and he'll sign anything. Connor stood still, looking at his wife, looking at the door, looking, without knowing it, towards the place where his mother slept with a Bible against her chest and the strength of 40 years of silence about to break. All right, he said. Tomorrow. Fiona smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes, because deep down, in a corner she never visited, she knew she was running against something she couldn't see, and what she couldn't see had a name, justice, and it was walking uphill in low shoes and a Sunday blue dress. Saturday dawned with a sky so blue it seemed unreal, as if God had painted Kinsale with the prettiest colors just on the day everything was about to explode. Paddy Murphy woke Bridget at 6 with 3 knocks on the window and a broken voice. Mrs. O'Connell, wake up, there's movement. Bridget opened her eyes. She didn't need to wake up because she hadn't slept. What's happening? At 5:30, the one with the thick glasses arrived, the rat solicitor. He had a briefcase and looked like he was owed money. He came in through the main door. Fiona met him in her dressing gown. Connor came down in his pajamas. The 3 of them are inside. Bridget's stomach clenched. Saturday. Fiona had moved everything up. The sale wasn't on Monday, it was today. She took Nora's phone and dialed the Wolfhound's number. 1 ring, 2, 3, 4. Hello? Aina Kelly's voice sounded hoarse, but awake, as if she had been working for hours. Miss Kelly, they moved up the sale. It's today. The solicitor is already at the house. Silence. 1 second. 2. Today. Saturday? Yes. My daughter-in-law moved everything. She has the solicitor from Macroom in there. They're going to sign. Another silence. But this one was different. This was the silence of someone thinking at engine speed. Mrs. O'Connell, listen carefully. The injunction is already drafted. I finished it last night at 2 a.m., but I can't file it until the court opens on Monday. However, there's something I can do right now. What? Go to that house with the original deed, your driver's license, and my solicitor's certificate. I don't need a court order to inform a solicitor that he's about to commit a federal crime. I can do that in my pajamas if necessary. You can come from Cork? Madam, I've been in Kinsale since last night. I stayed in a hotel because something told me this wouldn't wait until Monday. Call it intuition. Call it experience. Call it that I've known women like your daughter-in-law for 30 years. Bridget closed her eyes, gripped the phone. Where do I meet you? On the corner of the house in 20 minutes. And madam, bring all the papers. All of them. Bridget dressed, her Sunday blue dress, the silver earrings. She carefully combed her hair. She looked at herself in Nora's broken bathroom mirror. This time she truly looked. She saw a 7, 8-year-old woman with wrinkles that told stories, hands that had sewn 167 wedding dresses, and eyes that no longer asked for permission for anything. Let's go, old man, she said to Seamus's photo, which was by the pillow. This ends today. She left with the cloth bag pressed against her chest. Paddy Murphy was waiting for her at the door with the Little Mermaid notebook in one hand and a scone in the other. Need backup, Mrs. O'Connell. I need you to stay here, and if you see anyone leave the house with papers, call me on Nora's phone. Understood? Understood. But if things get ugly, I'm going in, all right? I'm not going to stand by like it's a telenovela. It is a telenovela, Paddy, but a real-life one. Well, in real life, the scone man always wins. Remember that. Bridget walked uphill. The cobblestones no longer hurt her ankles. Or maybe they did, but she no longer cared. Some pains become small when what's at stake is big. The wolfhound was already on the corner. Bridget recognized her by her red hair, but barely recognized her otherwise. Aina Kelly wore a black power suit, heels that clicked against the stone like a judge's hammer blows, a leather briefcase that seemed to have seen more courtrooms than any solicitor in the city, and an expression that brooked no negotiation. Ready, madam? Ready. Then let's knock on that door. They walked up the cobblestone street together. The sun warmed their faces. The parish bells struck 7. A dog watched them pass from a pavement and decided to follow them, as if it knew something important was about to happen. The wolfhound knocked on the stone house door. 3 sharp, firm knocks. The same knocks she had used on courthouse doors, ministries, and offices for 30 years. Silence inside. She knocked again, harder. Footsteps were heard. The door opened. Fiona appeared in the doorway in a cream silk dressing gown, her hair loose, and an expression that went from annoyance to confusion and from confusion to panic in exactly 2 seconds. "Who are you?" "Miss Anne Kelly, solicitor for Mrs. Bridget O'Connell, and I'm here to inform you that any act of purchase and sale carried out on this property today, tomorrow, or any other day is null and void." Fiona looked at the wolfhound, then looked behind her, and there was Bridget, standing in the street in her blue dress, her silver earrings, and a calm that was more terrifying than any scream. "Mrs. O'Connell," Fiona tried to smile. "What's going on? Who is this lady?" "She already told you, Fiona. She's my solicitor." "Your solicitor? Why do you need a solicitor?" The wolfhound took a step forward. Just one step, but it was enough for Fiona to retreat. "Is the solicitor inside?" the wolfhound asked. "I don't know what you're talking about. Mr. Arthur Connolly, Macroom Solicitors. He entered this house at 5:30 this morning. Do you want me to tell you what he had for breakfast too?" Fiona paled. She gripped the doorframe. "Connor!" she shouted inside. "Connor, come down!" Footsteps on the stairs. Connor appeared behind Fiona with a cup of coffee in his hand and the face of a man who still didn't understand what he had gotten himself into. When he saw his mother at the door, the cup trembled in his hand. "Ma'am, hello, son." 2 soft words, without resentment, but with a weight that made Connor lean against the wall as if his legs wouldn't support him. The wolfhound entered the house without asking permission, crossed the hallway, past the gilded mirror, and reached the living room where Mr. Connolly sat on the sofa with an open briefcase, papers on the coffee table, and the face of a man who had just heard the knocking. "Mr. Connolly," the wolfhound said, and the man shrank as if a bucket of cold water had been dumped on him. "What a coincidence to find you here on a Saturday at 7 inches the morning preparing purchase and sale documents for a property that does not belong to whom you say it belongs." Connolly stood up. His thick-rimmed glasses slipped down his nose. I just came to. This is a regular procedure with forged documents using an apocryphal deed that you yourself fabricated, on a property whose legitimate owner is the lady present here. Do you want me to read you Article 243 of the Criminal Justice Act on the forgery of public documents? Or would you prefer I summarize it for you? Connolly looked at Fiona. Fiona looked at Connor. Connor looked at his mother, and Bridget looked at all of them with the calm of someone who knows that truth weighs more than any lie. The wolfhound took the original certified deed from her briefcase and placed it on the table next to Connolly's papers. "This is the original deed for this property. Joint owners, Seamus O'Connell and Bridget O'Connell. Survivorship clause. Upon Seamus's death, the property passed entirely to Mrs. O'Connell. This document is certified and backed by the National Bank. Everything else on this table is legal garbage." Connolly started to sweat. He took off his glasses, put them back on. "Madam, I didn't know that." "Yes, you did know, solicitor, and I'm going to give you exactly one chance to cooperate before I file a criminal complaint that will cost you your practice, your license, and probably your freedom." "Who asked you to fabricate these documents?" Connolly looked at Fiona. He looked at her like a mouse looks at the cat that brought it there. Fiona took a step back. "I have nothing to do with this," she said. "Connor handled everything. Talk to him." The silence that followed was the longest that Stonehouse had heard in 112 years. Connor looked at his wife, the woman he slept with, the woman he had breakfast with, the woman he planned to have children with, the woman who had just thrown him under the bus without batting an eye. "What did you say?" Connor's voice came out raspy as if the words were cutting his throat. "I told the truth, Connor. You were the one who signed everything because you told me to. You brought the solicitor. You got the papers. You told me ma'am had no rights." The wolfhound didn't interrupt. She let them talk. Every word was a confession. Every scream was evidence. Bridget stood at the living room door. She hadn't moved. She hadn't said anything since "hello, son" at the entrance. She just watched. She watched her son crumble. She watched Fiona lie. She watched the solicitor tremble. And something inside her, something that had been kept for 40 years, broke. Not like a plate, but like a dam. Silent, unstoppable. But she didn't cry. Not yet, because the worst was still to come. "Mr. Connolly," the wolfhound said in a voice of steel, "you have until Monday to voluntarily present yourself to the public prosecutor's office in Cork. If you don't, I will file the complaint. And believe me, I don't lose cases." Connolly gathered his papers with trembling hands, closed his briefcase, and almost ran out of the house. He didn't look at anyone. He didn't say goodbye. The iron gate closed behind him with a bang that sounded like a final punctuation mark. Fiona remained standing in the living room, arms crossed and jaw clenched. Connor sat on the sofa with his head in his hands, and Bridget was still at the door, still, looking at the house that was hers, the walls she had painted, the tiles she had laid, the empty space where her singer machine had been. "Where's my singer, Fiona?" she asked softly, as if asking the time. Fiona didn't answer. "I asked you a question." "I sold it," Fiona said without looking at her. "In an antique shop in Clonakilty. They gave me €300. 300 euros. The machine that had sewn 167 dresses. The machine with her mother's initials. 300 euros. Bridget nodded. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She nodded like someone recording a debt that would be collected, and the debt was large. Monday arrived as inevitable things do, without haste, without pause, and with the weight of everything it carried. The civil court in Cork City smelled of old wood and files no one had opened in years. Cream-colored walls, dark wooden benches, a ceiling fan that spun with the resignation of one who has seen the same story with different names for decades. Bridget arrived at 8 a.m., her Sunday blue dress, silver earrings, low shoes. She sat on the first bench with her hands crossed on her lap and Seamus's Bible inside the cloth bag. The wolfhound was already there. Grey suit, black heels, the leather briefcase on the table. She reviewed papers with the concentration of a surgeon before an operation. Beside her, Mr. Gallagher, with his navy blue tie, and a folder with the certified copy of the deed and the trust records. On the other side of the room, Conor O'Connell stared at the floor. He had a solicitor by his side, a young man in a suit too big and a tie too tight that Fiona had hired by phone on Sunday night. The solicitor glanced at the papers like someone reading a menu in a language he didn't speak. Fiona was not there. Bridget noticed immediately. She looked at the wolfhound. The wolfhound nodded without saying anything, as if she had expected it. "And the daughter-in-law?" asked Paddy Murphy, who had sneaked into the room on the pretext of being a key witness and was sitting on the last bench with his Little Mermaid notebook. "She's not coming," the wolfhound murmured. "Rats abandon ship before it sinks." The judge entered at 8:15, Judge Carol Solis. 60 years old, grey hair tied in a tight bun, half-moon glasses, and an expression that made it clear she had spent 30 years listening to lies and had no patience for one more. "Good morning. Case number 12,847/2026. Forgery of notarial documents and property dispossession. Plaintiff, Bridget O'Connell. Defendant, Conor O'Connell and Fiona O'Connell, née Murphy. Also notified, Mr. Arthur Connolly, Macroom Solicitors." The wolfhound stood up. "Your Honor, the plaintiff presents the original deed of the property located at Main Street number 47, Kinsale, County Cork. Joint owners, Seamus O'Connell and Bridget O'Connell, with a valid survivorship clause. Upon Mr. O'Connell's death, the property passed to Mrs. O'Connell as the sole owner. This document is certified by the National Bank and backed by the Public Registry of Property. The judge took the document, reviewed it, turned the pages, verified the seals. "And the document that proves Mr. O'Connell's ownership?" Connor's solicitor stood up with the grace of a giraffe on roller skates. "Your Honor, my client has a deed that. Show it to me." The solicitor took out the paper, placed it on the table. The judge took it, compared it with the original. 10 seconds. 20. 30. This document has a folio number that does not correspond with the records of the Public Registry of Property of County Cork. The solicitor's signature is different from that on official files of Macroom Solicitors, and the date of protocolization is after the death of the alleged grantor. Silence in the room. "In other words," the judge continued, taking off her glasses, "this document is false." Connor sank his head into his hands. His solicitor loosened his tie, as if he were being choked. The wolfhound continued without pause. "Your Honor, in addition to documentary fraud, the plaintiff requests recognition of the trust named Bridget O'Connell Fund, constituted by Mr. Seamus O'Connell with the financial regulator with Mrs. O'Connell as the sole beneficiary. Mr. Richard Gallagher, bank manager and eyewitness to the constitution of the trust, is present to testify." Gallagher stood up, adjusted his tie, spoke with the clear voice of a man who had kept a secret for years and could finally release it. "Your Honor, Mr. Seamus O'Connell came to see me personally to establish this trust 12 years ago. He explained that the funds came from mining royalties from inherited land in the Laurel Glen area. The trust accumulates €7,234,856. It can only be activated by the beneficiary with official identification and the original document, both in Mrs. O'Connell's possession. A murmur ran through the room. Paddy Murphy on the last bench opened his eyes so wide that his mustache straightened on its own. He wrote in the Little Mermaid notebook in huge letters, 17 million euro. Connor lifted his head, looked at Gallagher, looked at his mother, looked at the solicitor. 17 million? He whispered. My father had 17 million euro. Your father left them for your mother, Gallagher said, looking directly at him, only for her. Connor remained motionless, as if the ground had been pulled out from under his feet. 17 million. His father, the man he thought barely made ends meet. His father, whom Fiona called the unambitious old man. His father had quietly built a fortune and left it to the woman Connor had just kicked out of her own house. The wolfhound took one last document from her briefcase. Your Honor, I have here the handwritten letter from Mr. Seamus O'Connell, written before his death, explaining the existence of the trust and explicitly acknowledging that Mrs. O'Connell was the one who financially supported the family for decades through her work as a seamstress. I request that it be read as part of the record. The judge took the letter, read it silently first, then took off her glasses and looked at it over the paper. Do you wish for it to be read aloud? The wolfhound looked at Bridget. Bridget nodded. The judge began to read in a firm, measured voice. Every word of Seamus filled the room as if he were there, standing in a corner, with his horse mechanic's voice and his hands covered in grease. Do you think I supported this family? It's not true. You supported it. Connor closed his eyes. Every dress you sewed paid for something I couldn't pay for. Connor's school, my mother's medicines, the deed to the house. Connor covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. Everything came from your hands, Bridget, from your hands, and your late nights. Connor's solicitor left his pen on the table. He no longer took notes. There was nothing to defend. And I never told you because I was ashamed to admit that without you, I would have been nothing. Paddy Murphy blew his nose with his apron. Gallagher wiped his eyes with a handkerchief. Even the court clerk stopped typing. The judge finished reading, folded the letter carefully, and placed it on the record. Mr. O'Connell, she said, looking at Connor. Do you have anything to declare? Connor stood up, his legs trembling. He looked at the judge, then he looked at his mother. Bridget sat on the bench with her hands crossed. She didn't look at him with hatred. She didn't look at him with resentment. She looked at him as she looked at him the day he was born, with a love so great it hurt. His voice broke. I didn't know about the dresses, about the late nights, about everything she did. You didn't know your mother worked? The judge asked. I knew she sewed, but I didn't know she supported us with it. My father never. Fiona told me that. He stopped. He ran his hand over his face. I have no excuses, Your Honor. I have none. No, you don't. But the law doesn't judge ingratitude. The law judges crimes. And here we have document forgery, attempted dispossession, and emptying of a shared bank account. Mr. Connolly has already voluntarily presented himself to the public prosecutor's office this morning and has stated that Mrs. Fiona O'Connell was the one who requested and paid for the fabrication of the false documents. Connor collapsed onto the bench. The weight of every decision he had made in the last 4 years fell upon him like a landslide. The judge issued the ruling with the efficiency of one who has seen enough. First, Bridget O'Connell is recognized as the sole legitimate owner of the property at Main Street number 47, Kinsale. Second, the cancellation of any purchase and sale document related to said property is ordered. Third, an investigation order is issued against Fiona O'Connell for the crimes of document forgery and fraud. Fourth, the restitution of 25,000 euros to Mrs. O'Connell's account is ordered, plus legal interest. The wolfhound closed her briefcase with a click that sounded like victory. Paddy Murphy applauded from the last bench. The judge looked at him severely. Sir, this is a courtroom, not a stadium. Sorry, Your Honor. I'm a key witness, and I got excited. Witness to what? To everything. I've been on the corner for 42 years. I have a notebook with notes on all the movements. Want to see it? It has The Little Mermaid on the cover, but the data is serious. The judge looked at him for a moment. Something at the corner of her lips moved. It wasn't a smile. It was the resistance to a smile. You may be excused, sir. At your service, Your Honor. And if you need scones for the court, I do deliveries. The wolfhound gave him a discreet sign to be quiet. Paddy sat down and closed his mouth, but his mustache danced with pride. Bridget stood up. The hearing was over. The house was hers. The account would be restored. Fiona would face the law, and the 17 million was still there, intact, waiting. She walked towards the exit. Connor was still sitting on the bench with his head bowed. When she passed him, he raised his hand, not to stop her, but to touch her. His fingers brushed the sleeve of her blue dress. Ma'am. Bridget stopped. She didn't turn, but she also didn't leave. Ma'am, forgive me. Silence. The ceiling fan continued to spin. The clerk still didn't type. Gallagher looked out the window. The wolfhound waited by the door. Bridget spoke without turning. Forgiveness isn't asked for with words, Connor. It's asked for with time. And she continued walking. She left the courthouse into the Cork sun. The street was full of people who didn't know what had just happened inside. Ice cream vendors, children running, a musician playing a trumpet on the corner. Paddy Murphy caught up with her on the pavement. "Mrs. O'Connell, are you all right?" Bridget looked at him. Her eyes were dry, her back straight, her hands firm. "I'm all right, Paddy." And this time, for the first time, it was true. Bridget returned to the stone house on a Tuesday morning, not with suitcases, but with the mint pot. She placed it in the kitchen window next to the others she had left dried. She watered each one: thyme, rosemary, mint. The water sank into the dry earth with the quiet sound of things starting over. The house was empty. Fiona had left on Sunday night with 3 designer suitcases and a taxi bound for Dublin. She left no note, no goodbye. Connor found a flight receipt to Faro on the bedside table and the wedding ring in a glass of water, as if the ring needed to be cleansed of something. Bridget walked through the house slowly, touched the walls, ran her fingers over the Talavera tiles. The one in the corner was still crooked. She caressed it. "You never fixed it, old man," she murmured. She went up to the second floor. The main bedroom still smelled of Fiona's perfume. Bridget opened the windows wide. The Kinsale air rushed in like a breath of freedom, carrying the smell of warm stone and fuchsias. She removed the gilded mirror from the hallway, placed it on the floor against the wall. In its place, she hung the wedding photo. She and Seamus, young, serious, scared, happy, without knowing it. The following week she activated the trust. Mr. Gallagher accompanied her personally. 17,234,856 euros. The number appeared on the bank's computer screen, and Bridget looked at it like someone looking at the sea for the first time, with respect, with awe, with the certainty that something so vast cannot be just for one person. "What are you going to do with all this, madam?" Gallagher asked. "I don't know yet, but I'm not going to spend it on expensive bags." Gallagher laughed. Bridget did too. It was the first time she had truly laughed in a long time. Paddy Murphy found out the exact amount because Maureen Sullivan told him, who in turn was told by Nora's niece, who in turn heard it from the bank teller. By noon, half of Kinsale knew that Mrs. O'Connell was a millionaire. Paddy Murphy arrived at the stone house with a scone wrapped in pink tissue paper. "Mrs. O'Connell, I brought you a special scone, the kind I only make for important occasions, baptisms, weddings, and ladies who turn out to be millionaires. Paddy, I'm no different than yesterday. No, madam, you were never different. Others just didn't see you, but I did. From my corner, I always saw you." Bridget took the scone, opened it. Inside, next to the dough, Paddy had put a folded note. She unfolded it. It said in childish handwriting, "Mrs. O'Connell, you don't need 17 million to be rich, but it's good that you have them, because it was about time the world paid you what it owes you. Your friend Paddy." Bridget folded the note and put it in Seamus's Bible between the pages of Ruth next to the empty envelope from the letter. Connor appeared one Friday afternoon. Bridget saw him from the kitchen window. He walked uphill slowly, without a car, without a suit, in a wrinkled shirt, and the eyes of a man who hadn't slept in a week. He knocked on the door. Bridget opened it. They didn't hug, they didn't cry, they looked at each other. "I'm not here to ask for anything, ma'am. Then I'm here to ask if I can sit in the kitchen for a while, like before." Bridget stepped aside. Connor entered. He sat in the chair where he used to sit when he was 8, and she warmed scones for him. The kitchen smelled of fresh mint. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Sometimes rebuilding doesn't start with words. It starts with someone opening the door and someone daring to cross it. Bridget served him coffee without asking, with 2 sugars, just as he liked it since he was a child. Connor took the cup with both hands. They trembled. "Ma'am, will you ever forgive me?" Bridget sat opposite him. She looked him in the eyes. The same eyes Seamus had. The same eyes she saw open for the first time in a Kinsale hospital 31 years ago. "I've started, son, but it will take time." Connor nodded, took a sip of coffee, said nothing more. Outside, Paddy Murphy passed by the window with his scone cart. He saw Connor sitting in the kitchen. He saw Bridget serving him coffee. He paused for a moment. His moustache trembled. He said nothing. He continued walking, because some things don't need commentary, not even from the man who has spent 42 years commenting on everything. 6 months later, the stone house on Main Street number 47 had a new sign next to the iron gate. It wasn't for sale. It was carved wood, hand-painted with green letters on a cream background. Bridget's house, Women's Community Centre. Bridget used €3 million to restore the property and convert the ground floor into a sewing workshop, a community dining room, and a reading room. The upper floor remained her home, her bedroom, her pots, her hydrangeas. The sewing workshop had 12 new Singer machines. 12 because Bridget couldn't find hers, the one with the initials BOC in the Clonakilty antique shop. Someone had bought it. She didn't know who, but each new machine had a small plaque that read, "Donated in memory of Seamus O'Connell," who never knew how to say pretty things, but wrote them down. The women of the town began to arrive the first week. Widows, single mothers, grandmothers raising grandchildren because their daughters went to work abroad. Women who knew how to sew and women who wanted to learn. Women who needed a place where someone would look them in the eyes and tell them, "You can do it." Bridget didn't tell them that. She taught them to cut fabric, to measure hems, to thread needles with trembling hands. And while they sewed, she told them stories, not hers, theirs. Because every woman who sat in front of a singer had a story no one had asked her for. Paddy Murphy appointed himself Director of Security and Food for the centre. He set up his scone stall at the entrance and offered free breakfast to the women who arrived early. No one asked him to do it. No one paid him, but every morning he was there with a clean apron, well, more or less clean, and his moustache freshly combed. "Paddy, you don't have to do this every day," Bridget told him one morning. "Madam, I've been on this corner for 42 years doing the same thing. The only difference is that now I'm doing it for something worthwhile." Miss Kelly came once a month to give talks on women's legal rights. She arrived with her heels, her briefcase, and her embroidered sign. Justice may be slow, but it arrives. The women adored her. They called her the Wolfhound, and she pretended she didn't like the nickname. But once they saw her smile, when an 80-year-old lady told her, "Miss Kelly, if I'd had a wolfhound like you 40 years ago, things would have been different." Mr. Gallagher created a financial literacy program for the women at the center. He taught them to open bank accounts, to read statements, not to sign anything they didn't understand. He did it on Saturday mornings for free, with hot coffee and digestive biscuits. Connor began to come on Wednesdays. At first he just sat in the kitchen and drank coffee. Then he started helping with repairs, the leaky roof, the kitchen door that still didn't close properly, the crooked tile in the corner. One Wednesday, Bridget went down to the workshop and found him sanding an old table someone had donated. He had sawdust in his hair, and his hands were covered in varnish. He looked like his father, exactly like his father. She didn't say anything to him. She brought him a glass of lemon water and let him work. Forgiveness didn't come on a specific day. There was no cinematic hug or tears of reconciliation. It came in pieces, as real things do. A coffee served without asking, a door fixed without asking for anything in return. "A good night," Ma'am said from the stairs in a timid voice. Fiona was located in Dublin 3 months later. The Wolfhound ensured the legal process took its course. Bridget didn't ask for details. She wasn't interested. Fiona no longer existed in her story. One Sunday afternoon, Bridget sat on the bench at the centre's entrance with Seamus's Bible on her lap. The Kinsale sun warmed her face. The parish bells rang. Inside, the hum of the Singer machines and the voices of women sewing and chatting could be heard. She opened the Bible to the pages of Ruth. The empty envelope was still there, Paddy Murphy's note too. She ran her fingers over the page where Seamus had kept the secret for 12 years. She smiled. This story began with a woman carrying 2 suitcases downhill, and ended with that same woman opening the door so that others wouldn't have to carry alone. Bridget closed the Bible, pressed it against her chest, looked at the cobblestone street where it all began. Paddy Murphy passed by with his empty cart. He had already sold everything. He winked at her. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Millionaire." "Quiet, Paddy. I won't be quiet. I've been on this corner for 42 years and now I'm even less likely to be quiet." Bridget laughed loudly from the depths of her stomach. A laugh that traveled up the cobblestones and bounced off the ancient stone walls, and the mint in the window, the one that seemed dead and that she watered with a glass of water in a borrowed room, was green. So green it was a pleasure to see. Sometimes things that seem dead just need someone to water them, and sometimes the women the world gives up on are the ones who end up watering everything else.